What? Yes, we are doing Janelle Monae today. Fucking dirty computer. I've been familiar with Janelle since her Arch Android album, which, you know, when it came out, it was fucking critically acclaimed, and rightfully so. It was overambitious, but undeniably catchy, unique, funky. The songwriting was great. It was just pretty much everything good. It was just superb in terms of being a pop album. And it was obvious from that moment to everyone that, you know, she's got the chops, the potential, the talent, and hence why we all expect so much from her and a lot from this album, even if her previous one, The Electric Lady, was decidedly worse. So I will just go on and describe the instrumental aspect of the first half of this album. It feels rich here. It feels smooth and vibrant, like a fucking psychedelic pudding, almost, yet also contained within its main nerve is that synthetic, sort of silicon-drenched, cutting edge, which the concept of the album tries its best at fleshing out. And this concept seems to revolve around a nymphomaniacal, bloody cyborg girlaroo called Cindy Mayweather, if I'm reading in between the lines here correctly. I mean, I don't bloody know, it just might be her singing pretty, well, you know, frankly, about being a bit of a horny clownfish, I suppose. I mean, seeing as what her idea of high concept art is at this point of her career. And yeah, this sexualization can be generously exampled on a song like Screwed, whose refrain seems to have been written by a drill bit. That is to say, wanting to be screwed. And damn, this song succeeds in being a fun, spunky little piece of neo-soul pop. It just makes you want to dance around at some fucking house party and fuck some people. And Take a Bite is undeniably catchy in how the bass and synth passages, when paired with those percussive elements, create a funky, sensual soundscape, which Janelle mirrors perfectly in her delivery and also lyrics. But you know what, from here, the album inexplicably just goes straight downhill. Django at least is a solid enough tune. It almost feels Kendrick Lamar inspired, especially in how Janelle was flowing here. I'm thinking Element, almost maybe from Damn. But yeah, as soon as Punk comes on, you know, with a Y of course, I was pretty much like, yeah, okay, I see where this album is going. You know, and not just because of the Grimes feature. There is at least a convincing progression in terms of showcasing a different structure and feel in this track. Still though, it's just the definition of tame and nothing about any of the vocal refrains or Janelle, anything. It's just all fucking the opposite of engaging, boys. It is unengaging. Make Me Feel as well feels like a fucking St. Vincent ripoff and how the bass resonates, not to mention the quirky mouth clicks and the off-kilter production, and most especially her cadence, which maintains this clear, clean edge just like Annie Clark's does here and there. And this song also contains an arpeggiated synth motif, which reminds me of, I don't even know, like Tiger by Neil Kekariga or Ciceriga. I can't exactly place the sample he uses there, but it is quite famous. Seriously though, those mouth clocks on this track just makes me want to fucking punch a wall. It's so infuriating. It just ruins a lot of this track, especially when it's isolated instrumentally. Just these fucking clopping. Speaking of similarities, I Got the Juice here feels like a demented cousin of Venus Flytrap from Art Angels, which of course she featured in. Seriously though, this song is just bad. It's just terrible. Pharrell's verse, or whatever the fuck you want to call this, is tepid and as uninspired as damper bread. And every single line she sings, there's just nothing to glean here. Especially lyrically and melodically, it's just the dumbest, most over-sexualized wordplay I've ever read in my fucking life. I like that it has this really heavy fucking bass, but also these generic hi-hat tittering fucking notes while she sings along, hitting some notes, but mostly just meandering and just fucking around seemingly. It's yet another display where her vocal melodies are just compositionally thoughtless and paper thin. I mean, what the fuck is the verse at the end of this piece of shit? What the fuck is that? The Stevie Lacy-esque little guitar passage at least saves it for a couple seconds towards the end here, but I mean, even that sounds like it was ripped straight out of Fear, which again just shows the influence she's taken on this album from Kendrick. Then almost as if that was a foreshadowing, the next song, Stevie's Dream, comes on. It is obviously a direct reference and emulation of the one and only Stevie Wonder, combining some melodies and production styles from songs like Isn't She Lovely and also Higher, amongst many others. And her vocals actually sound sexy and sensual here. The tempo is Soothe City, the synth instrumental aspect is great, and of course it is. It's Stevie Wonder worship. She should just do this on a more regular basis. I have to say at this point, it is impressive how she shows off all of her influences and emulates them unapologetically, yet still holds her own energy, her own soul and identity. This album could be argued as derivative, however, I think it is more than just the sum of its parts. There's a lot of soul and thought into a lot of the instrumentals, and they are really detailed. So yeah, the guitar on the next track here, So Afraid, is unmistakably Nirvana in stylization, so there you go. Those chords feel like they're going to break into Smells Like Teen Spirit at any second, and I'm disappointed at every single second where they decide not to, and then I just decide to put on fucking Nirvana instead. The understated, minimalistic climax at the heart of this track is decently alright, but not a great deal more, and just generally the bulk of this song just chews up too much time, again without doing anything melodically interesting. Her vocals here though, for once on this album, I can actually relate to. They actually mean something besides wanting to be fucked like a fucking duck. It was nice of her to change the pace of this album in that regard, at least. And yeah, some of the floating textures matched the fear of the lyrical content as well. That was nice. Yet another display of, you know, the detail and some thought put into the instrumental aspects, the layering here. And hey, to be fair, it's not just So Afraid which has a different conceptual leaning to it. The closer, Americans, well, I would just say that it feels unnecessarily divisive in its characterization. I guess not anything out of the ordinary for a pop artist, but fuck. She's just hopelessly naive at every point on this album. But here, it takes me away from the music way too much. It's such a terrible closer for that reason. It just leaves a sour taste in your mouth, especially when you look at the lyric sheets and whatever the fuck kind of strawman racist cunt she's trying to pull out of her ass to prove a point here. I mean, at least she's trying to say something here besides just sheer hedonism and narcissism, and it's honestly about time that I brought that aspect up, because the soul of this record revolves around these traits, seemingly exploring every orifice and being unapologetically shallow. Don't get me wrong, I love it when she's having fun with it, like on Screwed or Take a Bite. Two of the best tracks on here, incidentally. Just playing with that Cindy Mayweather character, you know, that nymphomaniacal, sex-crazed cyborg. But yeah, I will dwell here for a moment longer because I do share some of the intuitions which some very vocal detractors of this album talk about. Fucking see the most involved display of lyricism here in terms of the ethics of hedonism, which is the fucking main theme of this album, right? Is on the song Screwed, where she equates sex being a subset of power controlled through this MLK sounding sample. That's definitely true of women, especially given that they are the purveyors of sexual selection for our species somewhat, unfortunately for me. But yeah, beyond that, there's no effort put into what she's trying to explore here ethically. Her Django Jane song thereafter references vagina, monologues, and mansplaining, which again just goes to show how convinced she is of being a clownfish, I suppose, and how hopelessly naive she is about what sexual empowerment is and what the biological fucking underpinnings are between the sexes. She just comes across as too shallow and too naive way too occasionally here. I blame Grimes for that. Partially. I fucking love Grimes, by the way. Fucking love Archangels, but not as a person. And and look, it's fine to be shallow and naive, especially when the songwriting is infectious and catchy and funky and suitably sensual enough to take you away from the stupidity, right? But when the second half of this album, not even the second half, when the last 3/4 of this album comes on, the lack of engaging motifs, the melodies, and everything is just replaced with this shallow soul, this lazy, weak songwriting, Not to mention, the song Americans is just the most half-baked attempt I've heard in a long while of trying to bookend an album with something meaningful and conceptual when the rest of the album is just conceptual trash. So yeah, very hot and cold about this album. I don't even know what to rate it, to be honest, because this would succeed sky high as an EP with Dirty Computer as an intro, really nice sort of brilliant opener, fucking yeah, even Brian Wilson's oohs are fucking delightfully fucking familiar, and it's just great, gorgeous. Crazy Classic Life as well, that's catchy enough. You know, it almost feels drug-fueled and psychedelic as well. The instrumental has this smooth, futuristic, neon glowing instrumental writing with these bass lines in the background. It's just bloody Soothe City. And of course, Take a Bite is great as well. Screwed is great. Oh, but fuck everything else. Yeah, I don't know. I'll just give this a 2.5 and just leave it at that, boys. Could have been worse. Could have been worse. I'll just leave it at that. Just have a fucking good one. Hope you enjoyed my review. Fuck, it's long. Fucking cheers, cunts. I'll just catch you later. Wow.